Welcome to a place of hope in Forney, Texas, where you will find hope-filled, obedient, passionate, and engaging people. Now on to today's message with Dr. Keven Wentworth.
Welcome to a place of hope, and we're going to do things a little bit different, as you can probably already tell. There'll be no music, so you won't have to worry about whether you know the songs or not. But we're here to bring us the opportunity for us to listen to a message in regards to our sermon series. If you remember, a few months ago, we started an 828 series. Remember, we called it the 828 because we're going to watch how things all come together and work, and do they all work for good and all work in a way that brings out the glory to God. And we've seen through the life of Joseph how that is true. But a place of hope is a place where hope-filled, obedient, passionate, engaging followers of Christ are attending and encouraging those that listen. We've had a number, well over 100, that have watched our services over the week. We were shut down last week because our video didn't quite work well, but the audio is there. So, but we're kind of bringing this series thing together. Next Sunday will be my last Sunday. Should I just stop there? No. Next Sunday will be the last Sunday of the sermon series, and we'll do chapters 49 and 50. But in the process of going through this tonight, and as I kind of have injected into our thought processing, our vision is to be a place for hurting people, okay? And it could be people that are maybe struggling in some things in their lives. But we wanted to be a place, and that's why the sign has continued to draw, and we have occasionally drawn some folks in for that purpose and others. But yet we continue to stay, because I know there's people that are watching later on that are hurting and maybe the message. And I've really enjoyed this series because I've encouraged you to have an 828 week every Sunday, that you can see anything that goes on this week in your life, see how God can be working in the midst of it to bring about how he wants to mold you and make you. Not so much deliver you as such, and not that doesn't happen, because I don't want us always to think, well, God's going to deliver me out of, but God a lot of times uses what we're in to bring us out to something that honors him and glorifies him and makes us a better person in following him. So tonight we're kind of going to put a little live shot to it, and you know our friend tonight, and I'm going to have a word of prayer in just a moment, but introduce our friend. And I've asked him, I kind of specifically, as I was going through this, every time he'd hear the sermons, and he's heard most of them as we've gone through this, if not all of them, and one of the things that he says, that's kind of like me, that's kind of like me, that's kind of like me. And so I said, well, if that's kind of like you, I'm going to have you kind of like you come up and do the kind of like me message for us tonight, because I think it's important to realize that not everybody's track follows the same, and we know that. Some of us in this room would say we came to know Jesus Christ as a kid and a child. Some of us would say we became Christian at a teen camp or a youth camp, whatever it might have been, or at college. So we've all had different stories of how that happened. And a lot of us can tell stories about, in my life, I don't know exactly all the details of what happened, but I know, and I've told you my story, that in March I was challenged at Olivet if I was going to give up all my life and was going to be my vocation, my plans, my family, my wife, all that to him. And so my journey has included that kind back in my college days. There are others who take a little longer. Right, Marty? We take a little longer to come around. And I think there's stories like that all around us. I think if we would hear the stories of a lot of the friends that we have, we will come across stories similar to that. They didn't quite, they were 20 or 30 or maybe 40 that they came to their sin. And then a lot of us, if we're not, have heard the stories or have experienced the story, where we kind of fell away from it for a while, and then, there were a lot of circumstances in life that had maybe played out in our lives, and we didn't always understand how God was making an 828 setting in our lives. but brought us into the realization of what God could do and take it. And then others, maybe a little later on. So tonight, I'm going to let you hear a story that you'll probably have heard before from people that maybe you've been around. But this is one of our own that attends with us, and we love on him and appreciate all that he has done to help us. He still thinks, the one thing about my friend today, and I'll introduce him in a moment, is he still thinks this church is haunted because we seem to always have problem with sound or video or something else. So he thinks there's ghost of Presbyterian church past or something to that effect that's having some effect on all we're doing. But we've just about worked all the glitches out, and we're looking forward. And I'm grateful because I've had a lot of people say, we watch your services. Now everywhere I go, I tell people, if you want to watch what we're doing, go to A Place of Hope Church of the Nazarene on Facebook or YouTube, and you can see the sermon. So we're getting the word out so that people get an idea of what we're doing here. But we kind of think there's kind of this ghost of Presbyterian church past, and he's playing games with us throughout this time, and that's played into even the story that we would tell tonight, how we kept getting acquainted through these things. And Marty's the one that kind of connected us together, but I'm excited about sharing this tonight. So we're going to see an 828 reality show tonight, okay? Is that good? It's an 828 reality show. It isn't like the Housewives of Beverly Hills or anything, but this is the reality of what God is doing and how he works. Now, it's an interesting story that we're going to try to summarize through it till we get to the end so we don't take up your whole time. But I want us to have a word of prayer together, and then we will begin, and I'll introduce our friend. Father, thank you for your presence tonight and the opportunity we have to continue this sermon on Joseph and how you work things out. And next week we finish it out with the thought that what others intended for evil, you intend for good. And that's kind of a story we could share quite a bit throughout our life as walking as a pastor. So I pray that you'll guide us, our words tonight, guide our thoughts, and as we share this story, that your Holy Spirit would enlighten us and open up doors and help us to see your hand at work in our lives, and let you see the story that we hear tonight may be different than ours, but all of it has a purpose. And Satan loves also to beat us up when we hear stories like this sometimes, because he doesn't want us to tell our stories. But we're tonight here to say we want to hear the story and see what God's doing, and A Place of Hope has been this journey for us tonight. So we thank you and ask for your presence, for we ask it in thy name. And all God's people said, amen. Well, I want you to introduce someone you already know, my friend and our friend, Jim Long. He's going to come up, and we're going to talk a little bit. Come on up. You can come up. He's going to pull that microphone out. Hopefully he doesn't do this all night like some people with microphones, but I think he'll be fine. And
check.
You got it.
Hey, PK.
It's working. Hey, JL. He calls me PK. I'll occasionally call him JL. But Jim, you've kind of, some of you get bits and pieces of his story. So some of you know, Marty knows a lot more about his story than even I do. And yet, a year ago at District Assembly, he shared his story with the district. And the reason that I wanted him to come is because the theme of our district is we're all about the one. Okay, that's the theme that I set up about 4 years ago. And I was trying to tell people, it isn't about whether we have a crowd of people in our churches, but what are we doing with one person at a time? Just taking one person that God lays on our heart and work with them one at a time. And so he shared his story, and I'm sure we had a few other table talks that showed about how we could do one thing, like the church at Journey took one school, I know they're doing some other things, but one school, and began to participate in one school. And other things have developed from that, but one school. And other churches have done just one thing, like help one student in school with clothes because the counselor said they had no family and it was foster child. So it's really focused on one. And so if you were to join me tonight in our math, Jim is one person. See the math here, how it works? One person, so we're all about the one. And a few weeks ago, you stepped up to the plate and helped the one person in our church and helped him a little bit to make it another week and another setting in his life. And so we welcome you, Jim, and appreciate all that you've done. And even though we have ghosts in our church that you have recognized.
And I didn't bring the ghost.
Oh, you had nothing to do with the ghost, huh?
I had nothing to do with the ghost.
Okay.
Can I share with them just real briefly the beginning of the ghost? January 1st, 21? 1/1/21?
You want to go that far already?
Well, just real quick, just so they understand the context. I set up the computer in this building on January 1st, 2021. I was, COVID had shut down music industry, which I'm in. So I had time. He needed help. I'm glad to do it. I learned two things. One, that I was blind and I couldn't read. But more than that, I built the computer from scratch, programmed it. I wrote down the user ID on it, got here to install it, and it wouldn't take the user ID that was good. We brought the computer home to someone much more smarter than I. He confirmed, yes, that's the right password. Why it didn't take here so many tries that the computer actually locked us out. It wouldn't let us try anymore. We had to bring it back to the factory because it thought it was, that was where the ghost.
That's where we decided where the ghost of the place of
sounds in the computer, sounds in the wall. I mean, just all kinds of. It's almost like we were supposed to hang out together more than either one of us probably even imagined at the beginning. But that was almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
wow.
Hard boy. So let's go back to the future. Okay, let's go back to the future. And your story begins pretty well like most stories, right? You family.
I had the best.
Yeah, you had family. What's the word you describe them as?
Ozzie and Harriet, the Cleavers, family, mom and dad till death do you apart. That's exactly what they said, exactly what they did. They lived their lives for their kids. We came first, period. There were 5 of us.
And church was a part, our Catholic church was a big part of that.
We lived in the rectory. We lived in the St. Pius X rectory. My bedroom was once a priest's bedroom. We lived literally right across the parking lot from the school, so I had no choice but to be there on time.
So you kind of see that makeup. And then you got into your late teens and you joined, I understand you joined the military, or were wanting to join the military.
I did.
And some things began to develop in your late teens and early 20s.
Yeah, they introduced me to a word called scoliosis. Scoliosis. There's another one, a company called kyphosis. 2 words I wish I had known nothing about, but unfortunately I'm a little too versed in it now.
And you wanted to join the Air Force so you could fly.
Correct.
So all this kind of came to a halt when you were diagnosed with that. Is that correct?
They pulled my entire platoon out of the barracks. They stripped us down to our skivvies. They had us in a giant circle in this one big room, and 2 or 3 people were on, like, if this is a circle on the far side of it, they're talking about the people across the room if they can't hear. And when they got in front of me, they're talking about a guy over here, his rib cage was twisted sideways. I could see that. I had no idea what it meant at the moment, but then they said that his number in scoliosis is real bad. And they kept going, and my number was 21. At the end of it, 3 numbers were called. 21 was one of them.
So
and I had scoliosis.
So you didn't get to fulfill that dream. And so then you started into your kind of career in your early 20s. And it led you kind of an interesting path, didn't it?
Sheila McClellan, yes, MCI, telecommunications. My mother actually suggested my long hair has been since I was old enough to have a choice. Just the way I choose, no other reason.
Not covering up anything, is it?
No, just the curvature of my neck, actually. Right here's a weird curve, and then it looks really weird without it, so the hair covers that deflected, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But my mother suggested I go take a job at MCI Telecommunications. She said that.
No, you said MCI.
MCI, right.
Which was, back in that day,
85.
MCI was pretty much the company that people would talk about.
Yeah, they broke up the Bell AT&T thing, and they were the first reseller to come out with it. And my mother was right. I was pretty good at it. But she didn't have it in any way conceive what would happen next. I sold a big account, real big. And such a big account, I got a promotion, like on the spot. Like, you did this? Yes, man. Come upstairs. Great. And I didn't know upstairs meant going to Benihana's for plum wine, sake, and some other adult pleasures. And then that turned into a single. It turned into she pulled out some cocaine and said, "Would you like some coke?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't touch that stuff. It's poison. No, are you kidding? I'm a musician. No. And she, one line won't hurt. she probably was true, but the one line turned into 10,000 lines, and then it turned into other things and got really crazy from there.
So you got involved in cocaine at that point.
At work.
At work.
Not because of music, not because of anything except for going to work with my mother.
And
Love you, Mom.
And somebody high up is the one that really introduced you to that.
Sheila
You got involved in it. And you had cars. You were making some pretty good.
My credit was 800 plus.
Okay.
I bought a Cadillac. I went to the dealership. Said, I was looking to buy a car. Pulls my credit. Said, anything on the lot, Mr. Long? Excuse me? I'm like 21 years old. Any Cadillac on the lot. Nothing down. Just take your pick and go. It's simple.
So you got a pink Cadillac? Did you get a pink Cadillac like
No,
Elvis?
I got a gold Cadillac.
Oh, gold.
A bronze
Okay.
Cadillac, El Dorado.
I saw the Elvis movie last night and saw a pink Cadillac. So I wondered if you.
Yeah, no, not pink for Jim.
So then that kind of led you on and so forth. And then what began to develop after that? Because you started following a different career.
Well, the only career then was to get more cocaine, more drugs. That was my life for 8 years until my daughter was born. Okay. I mean, nothing else, even my own mortality was completely irrelevant. There was I overdosed several occasions, and it didn't slow me down.
So you met a couple young women, I understand?
Yes. And let's just put it as PG as possible. They both wanted to be with me. They wanted to be my girlfriend, and one day, I wouldn't have either one of them, frankly. And I walked in from work one day, one of the sober days. And cocaine was in my pocket, mind you, but I had enough to go to work still, so I was still fighting it. And I get home, and they're both in my bed waiting for me. And 9 months later, my daughter was born.
Can you put 2 and 2 together, right? 9 months later, someone's born. And that was interesting, I'm sure, quite an interesting story. So then before your daughter was born, you got married.
Yeah.
To the one that was pregnant. And what happened the day your daughter was born?
That's the first time God, I think, actually touched me. As I said a moment ago.
Tried to get your attention.
Oh, we got my attention.
You got it.
We got my attention. Before that, doesn't matter why. I took my cocaine use like I do to everything to the next level. I literally started using syringes, which is just, as I think about it, it makes me cringe. I can't believe I ever did that. My parents' son did that. But I accidentally used way too much, enough to kill people, a lethal dose. And after I lay there, willing myself to not die, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. I read it out. 22 minutes I was in that state, fighting, just telling myself, don't die, brain, don't turn off. It's like I was being picked up, and it's terrifying. But as soon as I recovered, about 3 hours later, I hit it again. In fact, not only didn't that slow me down, it said, I survived a half gram. That means I could take that 2.20 of a gram and go a little higher and not worry about it because I just survived a 0.50. As I'm saying these words out loud, I can't believe it's real. I wish this was a script someone had written me, or a bad script from Hollywood or something, but it's not. It's not. Nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. My parents, when I brought them into it, everybody tried to help. Nobody could. And then the day when Kathy was born, we walk in from the hospital. She's in my hand. I literally had a whiteout. Can't see nothing. Completely white. And then it went away. There's this baby in my hand. It's like, you want to be a junkie or a daddy? You got that's one of your choices. That's the only choices you got at this point. You can't be a junkie and be a dad. That's my opinion. You can be a father. You can father somebody just getting pregnant. That's easy. To be a dad is a whole different ballgame. And that's what saved me.
So far, we've gotten to this point. This would be 1992 because your daughter's 30 years old. So we've come to this point where we've heard this story, and there's a lot of pieces here. And God probably throughout that was still trying to get your attention from your days. But again, whether you notice it or not, which some of us could testify.
Well, Pastor Marty, about 2 years ago, I moved this apartment and made a comment about that. I thought it was, I made a comment about it being old code from back from my, he said, that wasn't code from your brain. You're being seduced by a demon, by evil. And I thought you were out of your mind at that moment. I'm not going to lie, sir. I really did. I thought this dude's just, way too in the books.
Yeah.
But now I believe that, you couldn't talk me out of believing that now. I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind.
So then with some of I understand from our conversation, you had some shoulder problems. You had this this physical issue that you couldn't get in the Air Force, or couldn't go any farther with the Air Force, and you were introduced to some other things, right? And what was that other thing? The medication.
Well, you're bouncing all over the timeline. Just recently? You want me to tell?
No. I mean, you said you were doing it for 20, 30 years.
Oh, that was.
Oxy-
The Vicodin. Oh, yeah.
The Vicodin.
Well, when I was in the Air Force, I was 17 years old. They tell me my back's screwed up and you can't stay. Sorry, gotta go. Go out in the world, and for 10 years, nothing really happened. I was fit. I could run. I could play soccer, ride bicycles, literally all day. There was no none of that crap. I was healthy. I was fit, ready to rock and roll. 10 years later, 27 rolls around, and I went to the doctor for the first time because my back's hurting in a way that doesn't make sense. It's like, what's this? I'd forgotten about scoliosis and kyphosis and the military, really. And that's the first time I said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. Here are some pain pills. That's where I got Vicodin for the first time. And find a way to live with it. Exactly what I heard. A few years later, I went back to another doctor, and that was it. Every doctor for 25 years said, there's nothing we can do for you. Here's more pills. Here's more pills. Here's more pills. I tried every kind of pill there was. I mean, it's amazing my liver works at all. Very resilient, thank you, God.
So you can kind of see a little bit of the story as it's developing here. Drugs early on, as far as cocaine, Vicodin, all that added into this story that we're
Non-stop.
And then, so then you had your daughter. You're going to be a junkie or a daddy. You
I chose daddy.
8 years later, you divorced the wife that had the baby, but you raised the child by yourself.
Yeah, she left.
So what did you do between 2000? Was it, I think 2002, 2018? You were involved in some IT stuff.
Yes, I hold a provisional patent with the U.S. Library of Congress and a copyright with the U.S. Library of Congress for things I invented. You guys ever been looking for, like, you get directions to a building or a house or something, real estate, and they actually have a live picture of the street? It's called Street View. I did that first, years before Google ever did. And we took it to another level. We actually animated the world. That we did what we call an advanced virtual tour. So if we were to do this church, for instance, people would be able to click on the doors would open, they'd walk inside to about here, wherever I wanted them to. They'd be able to look up and see the fans turning. They'd see me speaking. They'd hear me speaking. We animated the entire island of Tybee, Georgia, including the Atlantic Ocean. You go 125 feet up into this lighthouse and look at the ocean, and we animated the ocean on your website. We had you could drive from one end of the island all the way to the other. When we first get on, there's a sign that says, "You're welcome to Tybee Island." And filming in my Cadillac, we've shot the entire island. And anywhere in real life, you could pull up to a stop sign and take a left, take a right, go forward, or turn around. You could do that on my website. Not cartoons, not the real footage of the real places. And we did 14 different locations where you could walk in, and there's George's of Tybee, a restaurant, for instance. They had a mandolin playing in the corner back here. The TV's on, you can hear the commercials, you hear the copyright. I invented that.
See, and the thing that you see, if you've ever been around architects, they now do that now. When they're trying to sell a commercial building, you can walk through it, and he can show you what it looks like when you're sitting there. I think you had that happen in a few other places. So you did that for a number of years, this and that.
Yeah, 15.
And then you got involved in video.
Well, then the technology, we built a code and a program. It wasn't nothing you could go at any store and buy. How do you make the animated virtual tour? It didn't work that way. We created something from scratch, and the language that my designers used, the computer language, computers talk to each other kind of like we're speaking English right now. My fiance speaks Spanish as her first language. Well, the language that our program used was disowned by the internet, meaning that all the servers around the planet stopped using this protocol, which means we were shut down. And when it happened, I didn't have the financial resources we would have had to build it from scratch. So years of my life was just turned off like that. Nothing I could do about it. So what I did do is I took the parts I could understand, the broadcast side of it. I stripped that out of it and turned it into what's now called ANC TV, which I've been doing for 15 years, and how I've been making a pretty good living.
And when you think about IT stuff, even those of us that have been around a while, we've watched this whole thing develop. Remember, it used to be the DSL with the, all that kind of stuff and how it's slowed. And this is what he's talking about. Things have come along and gone on top of it. and they couldn't have the resources. So you got into video, and so you did video for lots of different things.
Just about everything.
About everything you can think of. Here in the Dallas area and other places.
Yep, all the way as far as Boston, Massachusetts, to Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
I've been in every big major venue in Dallas, Fort Worth area. In fact, there's not a musician in this town that if they don't know my name, they know me by look because, well, until recent events, my left arm was better. How can I put this? But it still didn't work. It took years to get. So all this time, I've been working every single day, every shift I can get at any venue I can get. And so as a result, when you live long enough to keep doing that, everybody knows who. Again, if not my name, they know my face. It's weird to go out and people, dude, Jim, how you? They tell all this stuff about me. It's like, God, I feel bad because I don't know who you are.
And then you had some surgery on your neck that was affecting your arm and kind of limited you.
All right, I'd like to package a little, not package, but really get, if I may. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I took a job working a camera, and I had to use my left arm. Before that, all my work was done at this level. I created a system of computers that I ran the venue with, so I didn't ever have to use my arms above this level. I didn't even know why at the time, but when the pandemic happened, I lost my job, and so I took immediately the next day, I went to the job using a camera, which involves the left hand above the waist. It didn't take an hour into that first day to realize something's very wrong. And by the end of the third day, I literally couldn't lift the arm. It was over. The elbow only, shoulder was gone. The doctor said because the neck was collapsing and it was cutting off oxygen to the arm, and therefore that's what the burning and all the other fun that had been going on for years is now reached fever pitch. If not for the pandemic, frankly, he said I would have lost my arm because it was actively dying. I had surgery within 6 weeks of that diagnosis. Sorry, I lost train of thought for a second. You just said, by the way, I hate it when this happens, yes.
It does happen, though.
Oh, too much. I'm sure it's because of the LDS I did in my 80s.
But you had the surgery.
Yes. I had the surgery on July 24th, 2020. That began a complete system makeover. I don't eat junk food. I don't eat fried foods at all anymore. I cook everything I eat, just about. It started exercise every day, physical therapy every other day for 18 months from July, maybe August of 2020 until January of this year. Every single day was to fix the arm, to do the rehab. It was my beautiful fiancée to be is a lawyer. She's beautiful. She's soft. She's sweet. She's a foot shorter than I am, 70 pounds lighter than I am. And when I got the diagnosis that my arm was actively dying, we're at Gas Monkey. I was working there that summer. And I said, honey, let's go arm wrestle. I'm a foot taller. I'm 100 pounds. She beat me. She hurt me. She didn't just beat me. She put my left arm to the. That's when I realized at that moment, oh God, this isn't funny. He wasn't exaggerating. This is really serious.
So you've had physical things that have gone on throughout this whole.
A 98-pound woman beat me in arm wrestling.
And if we talk about Joseph, we're talking about still going back and seeing a whole bunch of these twists and turns in your life. And you knew Marty back a few years before you even knew me. And so Marty introduced you when we started opening up the church to help us with video. And so tell us a little bit about, and I think it goes back to realizing that when, again, there's a whole bunch of twists and turns here, but I want to make sure we see, if we look at your story, and there's so much in between, which I understand, I'm not giving you the whole time to do that. But in all of this stuff, there's an interesting thing that develops of why he's sitting here today. It started with his friendship with Marty through, I'm assuming, video stuff. Am I right? Or some kind, what's that? Rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby.
So there was this connection of that connecting piece with Marty. And Marty, when I was looking at trying to do all this stuff, he introduced me to Jim, and Jim came in and found our ghosts of Presbyterian church past, because every time we tried to get him set up. And all we did is we just started conversation. I didn't preach at you, and I didn't tell you to come to my church. but I was so appreciative of what you were doing for us to help us. And so you've had these physical things, you've had drug things, you've had Vicodin things, you've had a daughter that challenged you, either a daddy or a junkie, you've had a divorce that wasn't pretty all that time. You had all these things pick and choose. And I want us to make sure we all understand, even if, like the scriptures even show, doesn't give us every single detail, but everything that goes on in our lives, there's a God who's involved in it. So I don't believe you came introduced to our church by circumstance, by coincidence.
On day one, I would have said that's the case, but now there's no way it's a coinky-dink. There's too many coinky-dinks. I call it coincidence. Way too many.
So what began to happen as we began to work with us here? What began to speak to your heart?
The amazing amount of this shoulder that he pointed to a moment ago is the same arm that I rehabbed from 2020, 2021 until the beginning of this year, right? February 23rd, I woke up that morning for the first time in my life as an adult. Not only did I beat nicotine, I didn't even want it anymore. There was no part of me that said, hey, Jim, none of that. I mean, I could work out. The way I chased the Jones off from nicotine was exercise until I had an endorphin rush, and that's how I beat it. On February 23rd of this year, I was going to go meet him and 2 other people. It iced that night. I was cured. My arm was strong. No Vicodin, no painkillers of any kind. I beat all of it against all odds. I overcame the addiction of cocaine. I overcame being an idiot when it came to being a dad. I learned how to do all that. I get up here, we do the surgery, we fix everything, and then walk into my car to see if it's safe to drive. And I was body slammed by Beelzebub. I'm going to say it out loud on this recording because I don't believe it was just a random fall. That random fall was followed by 4 bone diagnoses that cost me 3 extra months of physical therapy and pain, and almost lost my left arm again. After the fall, my left arm, the same left arm that the neck had taken out, where I had all kinds of metal and crap, was a year and a half to rebuild, was gone again. I was body slammed in such a way that I broke the humerus bone right here, very badly. What they didn't know is that the torn rotator cuff, torn bicep, and torn bicep, completely torn. So for 3 months, they're having me stretch this arm out, and every time I did it, it was pulling those severed pieces farther and farther apart because they blew the diagnosis. The arm, the same arm. I mean, so finally, 3 months go by. I'm going to the doctor. I got upset. He says, I'll never use my arm again. I'll never play my guitar again, for instance, or tie my shoes or buckle my pants. And I wasn't going to have it. No, you're wrong. You're missing something. So finally he does the MRI, and these guys got all big. The moment he sees the report, says, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Long, we need to have surgery immediately. You think? The same arm. It's dead again. I can't lift it. I mean, I could do this. I was like a pterodactyl, but any of this?
But they didn't do surgery at first.
No,
they just sent you to rehab.
Months went by. And this is where I don't think it's a coincidence, because it was almost like I had to be, I threw away, dispose of properly, my last 40 Vicodin when I got this one. I did not finish them. The first time in my life. I didn't want it. I walked, the same arm that the neck took out, this took out. And while this is going on, I can't play my guitar again. But what I can do is sing, because you sing using your core, diaphragm 1 and 2, at chest, and your voice box. During this whole time, that's what stayed working. So during that one, I'm a better singer at this moment than I've ever thought it possible in my lifetime. I never thought that. I thought the talent I now possess is something you had to be born with, like my daughter has. She's got a gift. I don't have a gift, but I'm tenacious, and I won't take no for an answer. And God, or these quinky dinks, kept putting me in a place where the only thing I could do, I spent 2 years in an apartment. My bed, my workstation, a little 700 square foot little bitty apartment, me alone, no dog, no wife, no kid, no family, nobody. Me and the plant my dad murdered sister I got from her. That's it, just us alone for 2 years.
So you got introduced to us.
And I got introduced to you guys.
Tell us just real quick on this journey, what meeting us or coming in contact with us meant to you or did for you and begin to work on your life.
During this time, I was unable to work. Well, I'm going to take it back. I tried working. I was working, but it just wasn't very effective. Nothing was working, even though no matter what I tried. In fact, I had eye surgery. I went to work, eye surgery at 10:30 in the morning. I was at work 6 o'clock that night running a light show and a video wall. So that's my work ethic. 13 days after this big surgery, I went back to work. Didn't wait the 14th day. Went back to work the 13th day. During all this time, this man and several people in this room right here, and people y'all don't even know, stepped up and provided assistance to me and my family that I didn't even ask for in a lot of cases. And it was blown away by in others. And these aren't coincidences. It's so bad that I was actually at a Walgreens where I'm currently staying. And I was thinking to myself inside the store, my nicotine, I gave into it. I went and bought a pack of cigarettes. And I'm walking out and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I fell on February 23rd harder than I thought. Maybe my body right now is actually in a hospital somewhere in a coma. Like I'm having a coma dream or aneurysm or something. And so I'm in the store, I'm thinking, is this real? Is God talking to me? Are these things happening to show me something? Because I can't come up to any other conclusion at this point. I'm not a religious person, I'm not a preacher, but it's not a coincidence. These things are happening to get my attention, to keep me on the path of what I'm doing. I completely believe that. I can never believe anything else. I walk out the store and I've got this question in my head. Is this real or am I in a coma dream? And there's a gentleman named King Terrence Williams outside cleaning up the nasty, dirty parking lot. And he looked shiny. His hair, his schmuck, his garbage picker, everything about him was clean and perfect. And I walked out with this question, is this real or not? And I walked out and he says, yes, it's real. And I said, what? I said, what did you say to me? And he repeated what he said. And I said, do you believe in God? He quoted something from the Bible, I think. And I said, can I take your picture? And I have his picture in my phone. Because I never said the words out loud. I never spoke. In my head, I'm thinking, is this real or is this a coincidence? And then this gentleman outside says, he doesn't say a word. I walk out and he says, yeah, it's real. To the point that it freaked me out. I have no axe to grind here in a sense that I've got I have enough reason to be cynical of preachers. But I've seen it firsthand. Richard, my fiance wanted something of me financially I couldn't afford. I couldn't justify. This is last year. And I said, honey, why don't you pray for it? She comes back to me, she doesn't, you pray for it. So I said, I will. I hung up the phone, and I asked God for help with this. Within a few minutes later, I get my phone goes off, and money, the exact amount, was put on my phone. And I had to call this individual. I said, Richard, what did you just send me this money for? You don't owe me nothing. He said, yeah, but I don't know why I did it. He said he had a feeling he should have. That's it. He didn't know about the situation. He didn't know my wife, my fiance, and I were having how important this was to her. And it was probably would have been a major mistake in our relationship because I didn't see how important it was to her. But apparently God did. Because he reached down and told Richard to do this, and he did it. And he didn't even know why. That kind of thing's been going on all the way up until King Terrence Williams says, yes, it's real.
So kind of winding this down a little bit, you come in contact with us, didn't push you to come to Christ and make a big issue out of it, but just having conversation and meeting people and meeting Marty I believe it goes back to the watering and the throwing a seed and all that for all of us. And that's kind of what began to happen. And then you've had these experiences over the last year and a half, or a little almost 2 years now, where you've just seen God provide, do things, and you're seeing God giving you a mission. And he's done some videos already, other projectors in other churches, because of our promotion of it from our church. But you believe that, if I can kind of sum it up in the minds of what we're trying to do in teaching, there's some strange things that went on for you're 60 years old, all these years, almost 60, okay, almost. All the bad stuff people could look at, well, that was the bad part of my life. I think you have come to realize all of that had a purpose to what's going on now.
Absolutely.
And it's work to help you bring to the place. You still got a ways to go. Now, none of us in this room have any more to do. We're perfectly in the place we need to be. Joke. We've got way to go, and you do too. But what I wanted to get tonight in recognizing Joseph, that this part and 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 this part, some good, some bad, some weird happening. You had some people help you that helped you for a little while and then vanished. You've had that happen before. Well, that's what I'm telling them. You know, you had issues with some video stuff, and some people helped you.
In the summer of 21, I was working. I got my job back. The world came back, and I'm at work. I'm running a major multi-million-dollar concert venue called Lava Cantina. We have a 20-foot by 12-foot video wall on the main stage and then 30 throughout the complex. And my job was to maintain all that, both keep it working and to determine what content went on those video walls. That was my job. I was the LD or VD, which doesn't sound right as I say it out loud, but.
Well, you couldn't lift things, and you had some young men come out of nowhere.
My hand, the ability to do this, went out one day. I'm at work. There's a lot to it, and I couldn't screw the screws to take the camera one night. It had to because it's an outside venue, and as I'm trying to figure out what to do, this kid comes over my right shoulder, starts talking to me. About 21, 22 years old, about 5'5", dark hair, light complected. And within a couple minutes, he's taking down the camera. And for the next month, he shows up every day when I got to work. He did the work I physically couldn't. And then every night, he came by right on time just about every time. I don't remember him not. And taking it down and just left. That went on for about a month. Hand heals. I didn't dismiss him. We never had, he just quit being there when I didn't need him anymore. 3 or 4 weeks later, because during that time, the muscles in my left hand had the exact same, not the same here, it was a different, but the same thing. I pulled them, and I'm upstairs. This time, I'm in a closed portion of the complex, upstairs, away from anybody. No one should be up there. Same thing. My left hand, I go to pull it, I can't. It's like, oh, God, now what? Kids over my left shoulder. About the same thing, about 5'5", 5'6", dark complected. And within minutes, he just shows up in the dark where no one's supposed to be. It takes down the camera and the same thing. For 3 or 4 weeks, he showed up at the beginning. He showed up at the end of my shift and wanted nothing from me. He didn't ask anything. And these are coinky-dinks. These aren't. I believe these messages were sent to me with a purpose. And right or wrong, that's what I believe.
And I want to make sure I give interpretation. Coinky-dinks means coincidences, just to kind of let you know his lingo and mine. So, but here's what's interesting, and this is what I think we need to all understand. Some of us would say, come on, Jim, that stuff, you know what? It may not have happened to you, but it's happened to someone else.
And I'm sober now. You know, I'm completely aware of what's happening. So.
Well, I don't know about that part. But anyway, just kidding. But what I'm trying to say to you is there were some people over in the course of my life that would say, oh, come on, that's a ridiculous story. But you know what? God does things just like he did with Joseph, beyond our imagination. And Joseph didn't get helped like that. Some of the things were years and years before it took place. And here we have someone that took 30 years or more. And the reason I wanted to share the story is because when he came in contact with this church, a place of what? Hope. It brought hope to his life. He's got a ways to go. But I've always told this announcement. When we first met, he said some words that were kind of flowery, to say the least.
I apologize for that.
But I wasn't, Marty and we're not fazed by that because we're here to reach people. And they come from these backgrounds, and we're to love them no matter what. And I think the reason this man is sitting here tonight is because God used all of these things, pulled it all together. Now, we have to recognize it's God. And he wasn't recognizing it all these times, the whiteout. Yeah, you did, but it still didn't register until we got in contact and we began to be able to show you some of that stuff.
Yeah, until recently, they were all coincidences. Until recently, no. It's like when I moved to the apartment. I was alone for the first time. It's like all of a sudden my voice said, "Hey, let's do something stupid." I don't know where that came from. I thought it was just, a 30-year-old cog and memory code in the back of my computer brain that says, hey, it's, And then when Pastor Marty said, no, he thinks it's an entity, it's an external force trying to get me to screw up.
And so
it's almost like on February 23rd, when I was coming to see you, the open chapel door, the first half dozen installs I did, I lost money on. So I went back to the board. How can I fix that problem? I learned how to do that. I mean, I was cured. I was financially, physically, emotionally, and it's on my way to spiritually being resolved. And then I was body slammed by Beelzebub. He didn't want me to succeed.
I can see it now. Jim Long's going to write a book. I was slam dunked by Beelzebub. I can see the title of it now. I wanted you to hear a little bit of this story, so much of a picture. But what I really want us to gather is this is a Joseph story. Maybe not in the same context, but I don't think our stories have to be in the same context. But it still takes, and we notice throughout Joseph, remember, every time these things happen, what did Joseph say? God was in it. You remember this all throughout it? It was God was in it. God knows how to interpret dreams. God knows, God's the only one that can. God's put me here. And then next week, we finish it out with what you intended for evil, God intended for good. He started out with the evil side and has come to know God. Now, a ways to go. What's our job? To continue to walk with him. Our responsibility and mission is to keep walking with him and others. And I believe that tonight, I wanted those that hadn't met Jim, I know we have, and we know some of the story, but the journey we've been on together has been quite amazing.
I know I've lived longer than I ever thought I would because the Vicodin not in my pocket anymore. That's great. I never thought I'd be here. The fact that so many things are turning the way I want them, and I never thought they would. That's the biggest of all. That's the biggest of all.
And you got some other things you're working on now that I know that you've been challenged to work through, and we're praying for you it will work through and all the things that are going on. But I wanted you to hear a little bit, and again, you did for about 45 minutes. So,
and if I may, one more thing, whether there's anyone in this room tonight, anyone watching this later, I am both a survivor of a hardcore drug addiction, and I've raised a child on my own who has never touched cocaine or any kind of drugs. And since my Creator apparently has got plans for me, he wouldn't let me die back when I tried to do it. And he's no matter what happens. So I'm going to spend the rest of my life, if you or anyone has someone that is on the verge or they need someone to talk about, if you're a parent and you got a sick kid on this stuff, and you don't know what to do, call me. I'll talk to you anytime. If I'm awake, I'll take the call. If you're a kid and your parents are sick, call me. I'll talk to you too, because I know how to do it from both ends.
So I just wanted you to hear it from the story, and appreciate you taking the time, appreciate you taking the opportunity. And again, it was just a little smidgen of the whole story, but I think you caught the drift.
And every word's 100% true.
And it's on video. So tonight, I want, Marty, if you don't mind taking up our offering tonight, but I appreciate Jim doing that, and it'll be on. Hopefully, the recording will be good tonight, and we can get it on.
Marty.
And we can get it on.
Pastor Marty.
And I appreciate, and I know, Jim, that I can say this. The group of folks that are here and those that are helping us outside of our church, appreciate having you share your story tonight, a little bit of your story. And I know you've got much more stories to tell. And we're excited about being a walk with you. And we want to continue to walk with you and be there for you. And I know you'll be there for us. And you have. You've put me on camera a little bit better than I would have any other way. And it's been good.
And I fought your ghost to do it too.
Yeah, he fought the ghost of the Presbyterian Church. And just to kind of disclaimer, I'm not saying Presbyterians have ghosts, but this particular church was a Presbyterian
It's 150
church.
years old. I mean, it says it right up there on the wall, So, I mean, a lot of stuff's happened here. And
So thank you. And thank you for listening. And I want you to have a what? 828 week. And realize that the story you heard tonight briefly and the week that you'll have, there's a purpose if we can see it. and recognize one thing we should always say: God is in it. God bless you and have a great, great week.
Can I do this? And all God's people said?
You've been wanting to do that, haven't you?
Thank you for listening today. Join us at 413 South Bodark Street in Forney, Texas. If you'd like to learn more, email us at kwentworth@netxnaz.net. That's KWENTWORTH@netxnaz.net.